Today's webcast will be about the new AnyBody modeling system and the musculoskeletal model repository that comes along with it. My name is Morten. I'm an R&D engineer here at AnyBody Technology, and with me today I have Christine DeSalo. First, I'll do a general introduction to the modeling system, since there are a few people here I can see who haven't worked with it before. Then we'll talk about some of the new features in the modeling system itself, and afterwards some of the new features in the model repository. The AnyBody modeling system is used in a wide variety of applications, from product design, economic analysis, surgical planning, load cases for finite element analysis, and then also movement analysis that we would do in gait labs. A workflow in the AnyBody modeling system could, for example, look like this. You would come with your own motion data and then combine it with some of the body models that we provide, or body models that you build yourself, and maybe also with some sort of external equipment. In this case, we've shown an exoskeleton. Combining all of that in the AnyBody modeling system and running the simulations allowed you to calculate the internal body load, the muscle forces and joint forces. You could also output those to do some sort of post-processing. That could be in finite element tools. And then some users even close the loop completely to do design optimization of their device. With that aside, let's talk about the AnyBody modeling system. So the AnyBody modeling system, or AnyBody, is essentially two things. It's a modeling system. That's what you see on the left. That's a tool to develop your models and to run simulations. But AnyBody is also the whole model repository. That's a whole set of pre-built models that has been constructed and over the years by many researchers across the world. And we try to manage this model repository and keep it up to date. So the modeling system, the new version is 7.2, and the new model repository is version 2.2. But when you download it, you will see that it's actually 7.2.1 and 2.2.1, and this is because we had a small bug fix release here in the last few days. So this is the version that you will download. How do you get the new version? You go to our homepage, anybodytech.com, and you press the downloads button, and then customer downloads, and there you can find a link to download the new version of the modeling system. If you want to see everything what's in the new version, you can look in the release notes, and you find those by going to the help menu and then selecting release notes, and there you can read about all the features that are in the new version. Today we're only going to talk about some of the most important ones that we've chosen here to highlight. And the first we're going to talk about is a new system for doing model plugins. So model plugins are essentially small applications that live together with your model. They are small Python GUI applications. So this means that AnyBody now also comes with its own Python distribution built in, so that these plugins will work out of the box no matter whether the user has Python installed already or not. And you see these small applications or plugins showing up in the toolbar, where you can see the small toolbar called Active Tools. In this case, there is a plugin called Human Model Configuration, and we'll get back to that particular plugin when we talk about the model repository. But this new toolbar will show you the plugins, and the plugins, they belong to the model, so they are defined in the model script. And it's also possible for users to make their own plugins. But for now, we've just provided a few that we think are useful. Another new feature is the metabolism models. So you can ask, what is that? But it's a new way to sum up the energy expenditure of your model. And in literature, there are two state-of-the-art papers that we have sort of identified and tried to implement. The first one is Umberger from 2003 and 2010. And the second one is Bagava from 2004. And both of these show a way to model the metabolism. And we've implemented two new classes in AnyBody called AnyMetabModel U and AnyMetabModel B that implements those two models from the papers. And studies in AnyBody can now specify a default metabolism model, either one of those two or the previous very, very simple one that was before. But those metabolism models can also be set for individual muscles. It's still a work in progress, I have to say, but we think it's ready for academic use and for researchers. So if you research, or if your research topic is within metabolism, then and you want to try to use this, then please contact us. We will be happy to help you get started. Other improvements I can mention that it's now possible to do multiple selection in the tree, and this is pretty nice if you want to quickly select something or hide something or show something, or even plot something, because it's also, no, we will get back to that, but it's another thing that has improved is the operation control here that allows you to more easily run the most important operations in your model. The other thing I wanted to say is that it's also possible now directly from the model tree to plot things. So if you find a variable in the model tree that you want to plot, you can just click the small button in the toolbar that says plot value, and this will allow you to plot that value. Finally, there's a new component-based view in the model, which allows you to also search the model tree. The component-based view is a little bit experimental still, but it allows you to give you a more flat view of your model that is not dependent on the structure that the modeler chose. And even though it's experimental, I actually think I would like to show you a short demo of that. So I'll just change to AnyBody. So here in AnyBody, we have a model loaded. And if I go to View and Components, we open this Components view that you see here on the left side. And with that, you can click this small filter tab, and then you can select different things from your model. So if you, for example, only want to see the muscles, we can select muscles here. And if we expand the different kind of things here, we'll see the different muscles. And in the same way, it's possible to search the model tree simply by typing in your search query here. So let's go back to AnyBody. The next thing I think we'll talk about is the model repository. It comes with a new set of updated models, new deltoid implementation, a new scapula-thorax contact mechanism, and many other improvements and fixes. It also comes with this new BodyModel Configurator plugin, and we'll get back to that in a little while. And then it comes with a number of new model examples. There's, for example, a new simulator, a new standing model template, and a new standing posture prediction model. And Christine will talk about those new models in a few minutes. So how do you get the new model repository? Well, the easiest way is that you open Help and then select the Demo tab or the demo entry. And from there, you can click the small link that says Install Demo Repository. And this will simply unpack the whole repository for you to use. If you want to see what's new in the model repository, you can find the AMMR documentation. And you can either do that by going to anyscript.org, which is our user community site, and then finding the AMMR documentation there. Or you can do it directly from AnyBody by selecting Help and then AMMR documentation. And this will open up the AMMR documentation. And with that open, you can click the What's New button. And this will show you everything that is new and changed. So with that, I will just go back to the presentation. Yeah. One thing I will point out is that here in the top of the changelog, you will see that there is a caution note. And this is because in this newest version, the default leg model has changed. So before it was the 20 lower extremity model version 1, and now it's the 20 lower extremity model version 2 that is the default model. So if you haven't specified which leg model you want to use, you will get the newest one now. And this might be a problem if you have an old application that you're porting to this new model repository, because maybe that's designed only to work with the old TLM model. In that case, it's easy to force it to use the old TLM model simply by setting the define statement that you see here. So keep that in mind. Next, let's talk about the shoulder improvements. The most notable improvements to the shoulder is the new deltoid wrapping implementation, new implementation of the deltoid muscle. This is a work by Martha from ETS in Montreal. And it's an implementation of the deltoid muscle that uses wrapping cylinders, and I'll try to show you here in the video. So it's implemented with a whole number of wrapping surfaces for each part of the deltoid muscle. And it's an implementation that works much better in a much wider range of motion. So we have chosen to make this the default deltoid in the new model repository. If you want the old implementation back, it's also possible, and you can enable that with the define statement that you see here. All of these define statements, I have to say, you can find in the AMMR documentation, so you can see how to disable and enable them. Another thing that has changed in the newest version is a rhythm to control the sternoclavicular axial rotation. And that basically takes away 1 degree of freedom for the whole shoulder complex, and it makes it a little bit easier to work with. It's also possible to undo this feature if you don't need it, but to us it seems like a nice feature to have. Then finally, there is a new scapular thorax kinematic mechanism. It's still something that we are testing and working on, so it must be enabled explicitly. And it basically solves the problem that we come up with when we have started to work on a thoracic model where each rib are its own individual segment. Because currently the scapula is basically sliding over an ellipsoid, which represents the thorax. But when thorax becomes like multiple segments that can deform, this approach doesn't work. So this new approach of handling the scapular thorax contact solves this problem. But it's still a work in progress, but it can be enabled by setting this define statement that you see down here. So if you have any shoulder problems, it's worth a try. Finally, let's talk about the BodyModel Configurator plugin. So that's a plugin that you can see here in Active Tools, and it shows up whenever you have the human model loaded in AnyBody. So it's a default plugin that always shows up. If you click that button in the toolbar, you basically get a GUI that looks like this. And it's a small GUI that allows you to easily configure the body model, so you don't have to write these define statements by hand. And I could also maybe just show you quickly how that works. So we'll go back to AnyBody, and then we'll click the BodyModel Configurator plugin. And while that launches, I have to say that what it actually does is that it writes to some of the files that you have in here. So if you go in and find the BodyModel Configurator file, just move this aside, you can see that there's a number of define statements in here. And when we change something on this, it will also change in the file. So if, for example, we add the arms or we change whether there is muscles here on the model, and we click OK, then the model will reload. So and it has changed these define statements down here that says that now the model uses simple muscles on both sides. So let's go back to our presentation again. We think this is a nice tool, especially for beginners who are unsure how to configure the body model. But I also use it a lot when I just can't remember which statements to write. Finally, we can talk about the new model examples. And you can see a whole gallery of all the the example models in the model repository. And you can do that by going to the AMMR documentation. I'll just show you quickly here. So if you are in the AMMR documentation and you click application examples, you will see that there's a whole list of application examples, and you can read up on the different ones. And there are a few new ones, for example, this knee simulator. And I think Christine will show you some of those now. So Christine.
Thanks, Martin. Okay, so I'm going to start off by showing you an updated standing model. And what's going on here is that it's now a little bit easier to configure. And there's 4 main features that we've added to it. And the first being that posture is controlled by soft mannequin drivers. The second is that we've added a center of mass driver that helps with balancing the model. And you can actually adjust the position of this center of mass if you would like. Third, now there's a full ground reaction force prediction. So as you can see on the bottom of the soles of the feet, there's now 25 nodes and the force predictions are visible. And last, there's the easy to control foot position. So here you can adjust the heel position and then also the toe direction. The second addition to AMMR is the new knee simulator example, and this combines the 6 Grand Challenge dataset along with the design of the Kansas knee simulator. And what users can do here are define the flexion angle they would like of the tibiofemoral joint and also the applied load at the hip. And then we pair this with force-dependent kinematics to simulate the standalone knee implant model. And this allows movement to be governed by the contact surfaces, which we've defined to be at the patellofemoral contact area, and then the lateral and medial tibiofemoral contacts. In addition, the ligament structures also govern the movement, and these structures are divided into various bundles, and each bundle can be adjusted for the origin and insertion locations, and then also material properties such as stiffness and reference strains. And we like to note that this model currently has a pretty long runtime, so you're not doing anything wrong if it's taking 2 hours to run. And then the third model I'm going to talk about is the new standing posture prediction model. And here it predicts the model's posture based on what external loads are being applied to the model. And these loads can be a fixed object weight or a force vector. And these external loads can be applied to one hand or both hands. And in order to run the model, you first load it and click and drag each of the 4 widgets if you'd like to adjust the feet position or the position of the object or the direction of the force vector. And then upon release, the model will run. And what's going on behind the scenes is that the model's minimizing the joint torques, and then also balance drivers are trying to keep the center of pressure within the foot stance area. So back to you, Morten.
Yeah, and before we end, I'll just talk about what you can expect. So this is kind of like a teaser for what we'll be working on here in the next year. So you can first of all expect an updated Glasgow Maastricht foot model that works with the current mocap implementation. So that's a work in progress and something we're really looking forward to get out. Another thing is our work on a thoracic model, and this is a work that is taking place with some of our partners. So when it's going to be released is a little bit up to when they can get their papers out, but it's definitely a work in progress, and it's also why we've implemented this new scapula mechanisms. And then finally, we're gonna show you or give you a new knee implementation using a moving axis. And this is actually going to be the topic of the next webcast we're going to do, because this is some of the work by Christine in her PhD. So Christine, maybe you can tell us a little bit more of this moving axis knee add-on.
Okay, sure. So yeah, this was a huge chunk of my PhD, and what we developed were a moving axis for the patellofemoral joint and also the tibiofemoral joint of the knee. And right now, just in this paper is just the tibiofemoral. But the concept behind it is that the curvature radius of the femoral condyles, it changes depending on if the knee is in full extension or full flexion. So what we've done is fit cylinders to these contact areas to find the centers of them, and then to create an extension axis and then a flexion axis. And then, as you can see in this model, what's done is this tibiofemoral axis goes from the extension and then back down to the flexion as a function of tibiofemoral flexion. And this is linear right now. And an exciting thing is that I've gotten the chance to introduce this into the AMMR and do this to the TLM 2.0 data set. And so in the future, we'll be able to have these scalable moving axis models for you to use. Back to you, Morten.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that webcast. So this brings us to the end of our webcast here today. We will if you want to see more of what's going to happen, event dates, and also a publication list of all the people who have published something that's using AnyBody, you can go to our website. It's anybodytech.com. Another great resource that I want to point out is anyscript.org, which is sort of a community site with a lot of help resources. And I especially want to point out the forum link that you can find in there, because we just, I guess, a few weeks ago launched a new forum site, which works much better and much nicer than the old one that we had. So if you go there and log in, you can ask questions, and it's a really great place to ask questions and get help, and maybe also give help if there are users who ask something that you know something about. So I would like to encourage that. Then finally, we can talk of some of the events upcoming. Right now, actually, we have a guy at ICRA in Montreal. So if you are at that conference and you want to meet us, then please send us an email. At the end of the week here, we also have a seminar here in Aalborg, where we are, on mimics segmentation and going from segmentation to musculoskeletal modeling. And then this summer, we'll be at the International Society of Biomechanics. First, at one of the satellite conferences, we have a workshop on knee osteoarthritis and knee cartilage mechanics. And then we'll also, of course, be at the international, at the main event. And actually, it's you who are going, Christine. So I'm quite envious of that.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
So if you want to meet Christine, send us an email, and we'll set up a meeting. So I think we should end for now. It was really nice that so many people has tuned in. So with that, I'd like to thank you all and say have a good day.